All right, everybody. This is Clear Vision Wednesday time. I'm your host of the show, Claudia Mühlenweg. I am the creator of the Natural Clear Vision Method and the CEO and founder of the I Can See Institute. And this show is designed to give you information about how you can improve your eyesight naturally. Sometimes it's just me teaching you skills and practices, and sometimes I have guests like today. And I'm really excited about today's discussion. So the topic is omega-3 fatty acids. And you might have heard that they're really important for brain health and eye health, but there's so many things you might not know. And let me introduce you to Lance Shuttler. Let me bring him on. Welcome, Lance.
Hey, Claudia, thank you for having me.
So you are an expert in omega-3 fatty acids, and you're the CEO and founder of Ascend Nutrition. And tell us a little bit about how did you get into this whole business of omega-3 fatty acids?
Yeah, so, I had a family member who eventually was going through some very difficult challenges about 15 years ago. And it ended in tragedy. It's a whole separate story, but, it actually ended up being a very good thing for me and, many of my family members. For me specifically, it helped me to really start looking at things like nutrition, diet, and how that ties into mental health and the brain, and just how we all function as humans, the whole body. So, fast forwarding, what happened was then I really just started digging in deep into the health science. So I studied health science at the University of Iowa, have a degree from there, and really started learning a lot more than what the mainstream was teaching on nutrition, health, wellness, all these concepts, and really became passionate about omega-3s and any sort of nutrient that was going to be impactful and beneficial for the brain, and how that then naturally ties into eyesight as well, and conveys over to the whole nervous system too. So that's where things began, and I really started having this passion for neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, which is how we can change the brain, but also that's not just the brain, because neuro, meaning, neurons, we know that neurons are accumulated in the eyes as well and throughout the whole body. And so when we can actually help support that process of creating new neurons or repairing damaged neurons, which is neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, then we can actually impact the brain, the eyes, and the whole body in really profound, impactful ways.
That's super cool. And I know your background was more related to, mental health challenges and right. So like depression, and we can do a whole nother episode about that. And that's not the topic today, but omega-3 fatty acids are so wonderful. And I didn't really know much about them myself until I really got into the eye health and learning more and more about that. So I think you have some slides. So I don't know what is the best way. Should we look at some of your slides first? Because I'm a visual learner and I always feel it's super helpful to have some visuals. But I don't know what feels best for you to get started on this.
Yeah, thanks, Claudia. That sounds great. So I'll share, and I won't be able to see you, but please just, interject at any point if you got something you want to comment or question on. Okay, can you see this?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So, if you think about the word omega, it's the last and the 24th letter of the Greek alphabet. And you could think of this in different ways, but really just sort of like the ending of things, or it's like the foundation of what's important. And we know omega-3s, they're foundational for us humans physiologically. Like we have to get them in the diet. It's why they're called essential fatty acids. So getting those in the diet, extremely important. And, there's a lot of people who know about omega-3s and fish oils and algae oil-based omega-3s, things like that. But I want to bring in some information that's really cutting edge with this stuff. So omega-3s has been called biological antifreeze. Okay. So I'll kind of explain what this means. You can see the two structures here, the unsaturated fatty acid, which has the sort of kink in the chain, and then the saturated fatty acid. That kink actually keeps the omega-3s in this perpetual movement, this spinning state. And so this is where actually energy is able to be harnessed by neurons, and how information can be transmitted from neuron to neuron, and synapse to synapse. So that's how that sort of happens, but it also helps keep the cell membranes loose and flexible. And so this is why omega-3s, they're known to be helpful in terms of inflammation and helping people to not feel as stiff and as tight. The reason is because it loosens those cellular membranes. So kind of going even more on that, this is actually a fundamental property for the continuation of life. So these cold adapted neurons can function at near freezing temperatures in algae and phytoplankton and fish in the sea. So if you think about fish, they're consuming the algae and they do it through sunlight, the photosynthetic process. But the way that they're able to not freeze in these Arctic cold waters is in part due to these omega-3s. And again, it goes back to this kink in the chain. It's in this perpetual spinning motion. So the energy is always moving and it doesn't harden and stiff and, eventually freeze in those waters. So kind of going back to this on the algae and fish oil. So we know, Claudia, that when people in general think of omega-3s, I think most people think fish or fish oil to begin with. And that's correct, but algae actually is the firsthand source of the omega-3s. So fish eat the algae and actually become the secondhand source of it, or the middleman. So you can actually go to the source, the algae, and get those omega-3s first and foremost to begin with. Tying into the brain, we know that DHA specifically has been called the pacemaker of brain speed. It's the most abundant fatty acid in the brain. It has electroconductive properties, so it helps with light facilitation throughout the eyes, brain, and whole body. It's an actual structural component of neurons. So meaning it actually is a physical part of neurons. And so it's like a building block of it. So when we get enough of it, the cells can function, the neurons can function, and then ideally things like, intelligence, memory, focus, attention, anything brain related can be supported and helped in really beneficial ways. Something that's super important to know is that here in America and really everywhere in the Western world, 95% of the population is deficient in omega-3s. There's different stats out there. Some people will say 80%, but it's, a good 80 to 95% of the population.
Can I interject here really quick? So two things. So obviously you talked about DHA, but there's also EPA, right? That's the two, and then ALA, there's different components. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And the other thing is about the population. Is it different, like, let's say in Japan, right? Or where people eat a lot more seafood, or nori, like all the different algae, is that different? Is the 95% more like land-based populations, or versus people that live near the sea?
Yes, definitely land-based. Japan, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but certainly the populations, the different European populations, more like in the north, they're going to be closer to the sea. They're definitely going to have higher levels. Japan for sure. But, like the US and land-based countries, absolutely, we're highly deficient in them. Going to your question on EPA, ALA, and DHA. So they're all omega-3s, but ALA will convert into the DHA and then eventually EPA. The DHA and EPA, the difference is really just the structure of it. But we know specifically DHA is most important for the brain, the eyes, and the nervous system functioning. EPA is more specific for cardiovascular, some with the brain and mood function. But often what is most needed is DHA. So we humans actually have a biological ratio, and you can find this on PubMed, of about 250 to 1 in terms of what is needed for DHA to EPA. So we need a lot more DHA than EPA, just in terms of how we've been biologically designed. Now, of course, there's lots of products out there that have different ratios, but what we need as humans most optimally most of the time is about 250 to 1 DHA to EPA.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And, kind of going on that note of the deficiency, there's this test called the omega-3 index percentage. And there's, one company in particular, I'm not associated with them, so I don't make any money off that. It's called Omega Quant. They're definitely the top one out there. And you can test your omega-3 index percentage. It's basically how much omega-3s are in your red blood cells at any given time. To raise your levels, it does take weeks or months of continued use. And this is what the science has, really shown over many decades. But the good news is that we know we can actually raise those levels. So the average person here in the US is around 4% of their index percentage. Ideally, we want to be at about 8 to 12%. So what they've shown, again, over many, many studies, both with fish oil products, algae oil products, and just omega-3 consumption via food in general, is that a person needs to get about 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of these omega-3s per day. And if you take that over a period of months, it's often, for most people, enough to actually raise that percentage into the 8 to 12%. So something else too about DHA is how it actually helps our telomeres. These are like the caps at the end of the DNA on the chromosomes, and it's indicated in longevity and health. Basically, the job of the telomeres are to protect the genetic information in the chromosomes. So they're super important, and DHA specifically has a very impactful role on the function and structure of telomeres. So kind of taking this a little bit further on DHA, there's quantum mechanical properties of this. I'm not going to read all these quotes. There's a couple things that are really important. So this Michael Crawford, he's a neuroscientist and director of the Institute of Brain Chemistry and Human Nutrition. He's a lecturing professor at the London Imperial College teaching medicine. And he's written some published papers. You can see this on PubMed. I'll read two of these quotes. So DHA provided the core for the development of the photoreceptor, and the conversion of photons into electricity stimulated the evolution of the nervous system and brain. The unique molecular structure of DHA allows for quantum transfer and communication of pi electrons, which explains the precise depolarization of retinal membranes and the cohesive, organized neural signaling, which characterizes higher intelligence. So in short, what he's saying is that DHA, via the process of photosynthesis, again, these omega-3s are being accumulated first in the algae, in the sea, getting light from the sun. It's taking in those photons and it's holding an enormous amount of energy. And so then when we as humans or even animals consume these omega-3s, it's incredibly important and responsible for actually how the photoreceptor of the eye and how the brain developed and how the whole nervous system has actually came into being. So quite literally, Claudia, DHA and omega-3s are just one of the reasons, but it's super, super important and, heavily weighted reason why we can even see each other right now, how we can hear each other, how we can interpret the information that we're sharing back and forth. It is, an intelligence compound in that it's helping with the transfer of information. So it's very interesting stuff. So going along those lines, you can see that DHA is actually, again, a structural component in the membranes of the brain and the eye. It's most accumulated in the retina, and I'm going to show that here in a moment, but 97% of the omega-3s in the brain is DHA, and 93% of the omega-3s in the eyes is DHA as well. So again, that kind of goes along those lines, what we were saying earlier. We need about 250 to 1 of DHA to EPA. You can see in here, this is a little depiction, the rods and the cones here. And what happens is that DHA will accumulate in those rods and the cones, and then it helps the retina to renew the outer segments of some of these photoreceptors and synthesize new membranes. So Many studies have shown that the efficiency of visual signaling is dependent on the amount of omega-3s and, specifically DHA that is present in the outer rod segment membranes.
So just to clarify, the rod cells, right? It's like the more the peripheral, the night vision, versus the cone cells that are in the center of your vision that are more for clarity and colors. So basically, I didn't even know this. So basically, the omega-3s the DHA is really important for the rod cells, which give us that night vision. And night vision or night blindness is something I hear all the time as people get older, struggling with night vision. So that's great to hear that that's also really beneficial for that. So thank you.
Yes. Thanks for adding that, Claudia. That it's so important. And, there's like when people take these omega-3s, regardless of the source, if they're taken enough, they can often feel benefits in the eyes and definitely the brain. But the eyes, again, it's super concentrated there. And so we can actually feel the effects from it oftentimes. And then, this is just kind of going along the same lines of what we were saying. It accumulates in the rod photoreceptors, in the retina, and at the synapses. And I'll just read this briefly. DHA, the major biosynthetic product of omega-3 family of fatty acids, is uniquely concentrated in the retina and synaptic membranes. In the perinatal period of life, when the bulk of synaptogenesis and photoreceptor biogenesis takes place, large requirements of DHA is needed. So what that basically saying is when we're young, especially, but even up, people who are 95 years old, they need the omega-3s just as much as the baby does. Now, of course, the baby needs it at that time more quickly, and it's more important at that time for their brain, their eyes, their cardiovascular system, the whole body to really develop in that way. But again, the point is that regardless if it's a child or someone who's 100 years old, we humans are built to actually get these omega-3s in our bodies some way. And so, omega-3s for eye health, as we've been talking, it's neuroprotective. So it helps scavenge free radicals. Free radicals damage DNA, they damage different parts of the eye and obviously all cells. So it actually helps with that. Supports healthy eye moisture. We know that dry eye is a big issue for a lot of people. We've got a lot of testimonies from people who actually will talk about omega-3s and what they're doing and how it actually does help what they're experiencing with that. Obviously with the function of the eyesight itself, and then circulation in the eyes as well. That's super important. And DHA actually helps with the blood circulation in that too. And then of course, intraocular pressure, how the eyes feel the pressure. It actually helps support that in a healthy way to where it's not too much and it's not straining the eyes. And that relates to a healthy inflammatory response. When we're in a not inflamed, then that eye pressure will be in a good, healthy level.
So that makes sense. The intraocular pressure obviously is related to glaucoma, which is a quite debilitating eye disease that robs you of your peripheral vision. And that makes total sense now that we know also with the rod cells, right? The rod cells are the peripheral and night vision cells. So really important for night vision, for peripheral vision, for prevention of glaucoma, which is, called one of those age-related eye diseases. And inflammatory, I just want to kind of chime into what you said. So giving maybe a couple more specifics, right? Age-related macular degeneration, macular pucker, like all these, it's all related to inflammation, really. And so I'm so excited to hear that. And healthy circulation, that's something else that, when it comes to glaucoma, that is often impaired, or even cataracts, right? There is not enough circulation in the eyes. So that's really wonderful. Okay, keep going. As long as we have great information. As long as the slides are helpful for everybody, maybe on YouTube, you can post if they're helpful to have the slides. We keep showing the slides for sure. Okay. All right. Awesome. Go on. Yeah.
Thanks, Claudia. So, the product. So I'll lead into this. So back some years ago, when I started learning about omega-3s, I understood how important they were, and I was getting them from different dietary sources. And, you know, it's not about even pushing any sort of diet or foods on this. It's really, I came to an understanding of, okay, what's the most efficient and easiest way for me to get a good amount of these omega-3s in the diet? So with salmon, we know that salmon is a great food source of omega-3s. It's often touted as, you know, the best source of it. And that is true, though. If we're going back to the information on raising the omega-3 index percentage, so we want to go from that 4%, ideally up to about 8, we need, again, 1 to 2 grams or 1 to 2,000 milligrams per day of omega-3s. But to get 1 to 2 grams of omega-3s per day, per week, that's 7 to 14,000 milligrams, we would have to consume 5 to 10 servings of your average piece of salmon per week just to get 1,000 to 2,000 a day. And we know, Claudia, that, and you know, everyone listening knows that most people are not eating 5 to 10 servings of salmon a week, nor do most people even want to try. Even if they love it, that's a lot of salmon to consume in a week. And of course, you know, with some seafoods, and depending on where it's caught and things like that, there can be issues with heavy metals, pesticides, and things like that. And so, you know, I've been working in this nutraceutical industry for the past 10, 11 years, and started to understand, okay, what could I do that's going to help with this, get omega-3s in the diet for people, but maybe do it in a unique way. And so, like we talked about, algae is actually the source, the best source of the omega-3s. It's the original source. So the company that I started, Ascent Nutrition, we have a product that we have out called Algae Oil DHA. It's got 24 of the fatty acids that we need, including DHA and EPA. We water extract it in a unique way, and we keep it as close as possible to that natural ratio. So you can look at other products out there. What we've got is 100 to 1 ratio of DHA to EPA. And in terms of what we have researched, this is the closest ratio for a product on the market in terms of as it relates to the 250 to 1. You know, if there's others out there, you know, people can share that, but this is what we found. The main point with this, Claudia, like we've talked about, is we don't mess with nature when we're extracting. Hexane-based extractions and other fish oil-based extractions, different methods, they will change the ratio when it's being extracted. So it's actually messing with the actual ratio of it and the structure of it in a way where it's not genetically modifying it. It's not a GMO, but it is being genetically altered in a way that we don't really need to do, and we don't do that. So it's pure, it's the way that nature intended, and it gives us these omega-3s without needing to go to the fish. Just go to the source. We bypass the fish and do that. And so what we've done as well is added in organic lemon peel oil to help with the taste. You know, some people don't mind the taste of the algae. Some people don't like it. But what we then did is just put in organic lemon peel oil to help with that and kind of cover it up. And I mean, you're welcome to share your thoughts on it, Claudia. We get feedback from people that it covers up that taste by about 95% for most people. And like it tastes fantastic with that lemon peel in it.
I agree. And I used to take fish oil, and you know, it's you know, it doesn't matter. The taste is never great of these products, right? It's like, but yeah, the lemon totally covers it up. It's like, it's just, it's easy. It's super easy to take. So yes, that's why I love this so much. I'm so glad you created this product.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Claudia. We love it. And I mean, it's doing very well for us, and people love it. Of course, the pets can benefit from the pure one. You wouldn't want to give the pets the lemon one. We do have a pure one. But they can benefit from that too.
Pets, that's great. I haven't even thought of that. So let's go back to that also. Like, because a lot of people take capsules, like they take, when I used to take fish oil, I tried the liquid one and then I did the capsules. But even those, so you sometimes burp, but like it's sometimes you still have that weird taste. But can you quickly talk about the difference between the liquid form and the, and maybe we can stop the presentation just for a second, the slides, so we can see each other just a moment. But can you talk a little bit about, like, what's the difference between the capsules versus the liquid form, and why have you decided to do it as a liquid form?
Yeah, so the liquid, first of all, it's very easy when we're doing the extraction to just keep it in the liquid. If we would encapsulate it, we would have to use a gelatin capsule. And it's not really the issue with gelatin, though there's definitely, people who don't want to consume gelatin. We wanted to make a product that is available for everyone, regardless of their diet.
Okay.
Vegan to carnivore, anyone on either of those and anyone in between can both benefit from this, because again, even if you're having 4 or 5 servings of salmon a week, you still need more of those omega-3s to get it in the diet. And so this is where you can truly supplement these in, and it makes it very easy. Encapsulation also makes it more expensive. It's just a more time-consuming process. It's just harder all the way around. And often to get an adequate dose, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams, you'd have to make literally horse pills. And we both taken them and we've seen them. Like you gotta make huge gelatin capsules to get good doses, or you got to take 4 or 5 of these big capsules just to get a serving. And we know that most people, and I mean, I've been there too, I'm not going to take 5 or 6 capsules of, say, a fish oil or something like that just to get 1 serving every day. Like that's not going to be something that's easily
Right.
doable long term. So this is very easy.
You can drizzle it over, like I drizzle it over salads, and so yeah, it makes it super easy. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we cover that topic. I don't know exactly what else you had on the slides, and I can look at if we have any questions. Does that make, or is there anything that we have not covered yet that you want to do before we get to questions?
Let's see. There's just a couple things. I'm almost done with these slides.
Okay, yeah. I didn't want to cut this short. I think it's just obviously we also have people watching live on YouTube. We have 50 people watching right now. And anybody watching, please put your questions in the YouTube chat so that Lance can answer those.
Awesome. Thanks, Claudia. So again, kind of going on the lemon aspect, organically grown lemons here in the USA, we use the lemon peel. Obviously, lemon peel has been used in a variety of ways for thousands of years. Rich in bioflavonoids, essential oils, vitamins, minerals, and other phytonutrients. Just the lemon peel oil itself is beneficial for cardiovascular, eye, joint, skin, and brain health support. A couple reasons specifically is that it's rich in these citrus bioflavonoids like diosmin, hesperidin, and eriocitrin. These are flavonoids, and these are known to support the capillary strength and healthy blood flow. So again, not just cardiovascular health, but healthy blood flow in the eyes. And so immune system, breathing, brain health, and again, eye health as well. So it's not just the omega-3s that you're getting in the product. We added in organic lemon peel oil as the flavor, but it's also a nutraceutical in and of itself, in that there's a lot of different beneficial compounds that are going to help us, not just with eye health and brain health, but in many other ways too. And then one of the last things is, other foods that people can consume to get these omega-3s, but also not just omega-3s, all these different phytonutrients that can benefit the eyes. So all berries, especially aronia berries, because they're loaded in these antioxidants called anthocyanins, and blueberries, raspberries, really any berries. Salmon, wild caught, ideally, organic or wild caught, not factory grown. It's often laced with GMO food, pesticides, the water's not clean, all of that. Avocados are great, citrus fruits, nuts, seeds, and ideally organic and sprouted on those if possible. And then of course, algae and different sources of algae that we can consume as humans. Different nutrients like zeaxanthin and lutein in carrots, other different vegetables, something that's unique. I know that you know about this, Claudia, and this is something that I love to do. I don't do it all that often. I definitely need to improve on it, but eating medicinal and edible flowers. So like marigold, you can consume those flowers and you get so many good nutrients for the eyes and again, the brain, cardiovascular system. And it's just like, it's a unique experience. Not often do we eat flowers, but there are edible flowers and those are great for the eyes too.
Also dark leafy greens. I want to be, can you go back to that? So there was a question in the YouTube, I just figured that fits in here right now. Does seaweed, because obviously we talk about algae, right? Does seaweed have omega-3s? Is it basically, yeah. So, and I know there's a bazillion, algae, seaweed types. But like, I eat, like popular, these little nori sheets, that you can buy now, like the little salted, those things. But like, what about that as a source of food for the eyes?
Yes, definitely. It's small amounts, like if you see a nori sheet or like a seaweed sheet, if you just think about it, like volume wise, there isn't going to be a lot in terms of the quantity of the amount of these different nutrients, but there's a wide spectrum of them. I mean, I consume them. I consume seaweed, different seaweeds, and it's of course great. But in terms of like the omega-3s and other phytonutrients, small amounts, just a good wide spectrum of them.
Right. And also enjoy what eat what you enjoy. And I eat chia seeds, obviously chia seeds, flax, hemp seeds are all really high in omega-3s. But I did the test as well, and I had to supplement. So I did that test, even though I was consciously focusing on like eating walnuts. Walnuts have a lot of omega-3s compared to almonds, who have basically none. And so I was doing like a tracker for like a week where I tracked everything I ate and I checked. And it was, it was definitely challenging to get enough without supplements. It was basically for me impossible. Like, and I can't eat the amounts of chia seeds or hemp seeds or all those other things that we would have to eat, or seaweed, like you said. So thank you. We do have, do we have you have a couple more slides, right? Because we have a bunch of questions also about your product. So I wanted to make sure we get to those. So first of all, like, do you have to refrigerate it after you open it? Is that something you need to do?
No, you don't have to, thankfully. You certainly can. We do suggest keeping it out of light, of course, and keeping it in a good stable temperature, but it doesn't have to be refrigerated.
Okay. And then people are like, is it available in South Africa? Is it available in Australia? Do you ship worldwide, or what's the situation?
Yes, to most countries. If they go on the site, and I know that you've got the links in your description, if they click on that and go to the site, depending on where their location is, like their IP, it will show availability for different products.
Okay.
It's hard to say specifically on some countries. Australia is very tricky. They don't allow in certain products. I believe right now that they do accept this algae oil. I'm 99% sure that they do. We had some issues with them recently for other products, but I don't think that the algae was affected.
Okay, great. And I'm looking at if there's any other, I don't really see any other questions other than miso or soy, but yeah, I think all those things will be complementary to, but I think the key thing is that you all have to test. It's important to test, because then you know really what's going on. And then interpreting the test, you usually, sorry, I'm just trying to dial my light down here a little bit. You need somebody to help you interpret it. And I know that's not a service that you guys offer. But I really love your product. I'm so glad I found this, because I did want to choose, or it was important for me to have a plant-based option, and also one that is bioavailable and that has the dosages without, consuming tons and tons of pills or oil. And that's what I love. Oh yeah, that was a question actually. Speaking of quantity, how many drops, how much of your algae oil do you have to take per day? And obviously this depends on what your test results are showing, right? So let's assume you're super deficient. What would have somebody to take, and would they have to take it all the time? Or is there a period where you take it and you stop and you take it again? Can you maybe walk us through that?
Yeah, those are great questions. So, okay, if someone's super deficient, it'll depend obviously on what they're doing, what they're getting in their diet, but let's just assume they're not really getting much. We know as humans, again, 1,000 to 2,000 per day is really beneficial and supports like different aspects of health in a multitude of ways. Now, can we take more? Yes, absolutely. There's many studies out there, especially for people who are very active, like athletes, but even people who just are not even athletes, but just have more of an active lifestyle. You can take, I mean, there's studies out there where they're taking 6 grams a day. So instead of 1 to 2 grams a day, you can definitely do 3 or 4, 5 or 6. That will help in terms of raising those levels. But what we've seen is, and what I've read in the literature, is that when you're at about 5 or 6 grams a day, that's where it's sort of like capping in terms of, okay, your body is going to take that for that day and use that and start accumulating it. But if you would take, let's say, 20 grams a day, there might be some acute effects, but it's not like you can just raise your levels in a week or two by just, drinking a couple bottles over a period of a few days. So you do need to consume it over time. This is not me even saying this. This is all the science of what they've shown over decades of research on omega-3 consumption. Again, regardless if it's fish or algae oil, it takes time to build those levels up. And in terms of how much to take, we've got a dropper, a graduated dropper on it. So you can see the mLs. So basically the conversion is 1 ml equals 1,000 milligrams.
Okay.
It's not exactly, it's like 999, it's basically that. So 1 ml a day, 1 to 2 mLs a day is what we suggest. And you can see that on the bottle and on the product page as well. We give all directions. We also list directions for pets as well. And this is based on veterinarian recommendations on amounts. Based on body weight for a cat or dog, there's different amounts of drops that you'd want to give them.
I see. Well, I haven't even thought of pets. That's a really great input. So I don't see any other questions on YouTube. Is there anything else that you feel that we didn't cover yet? And I don't see anything on Zoom here from my Clear Vision Club members. So I have the product right here. I absolutely love this. I've been taking it every day since, I don't know, a couple of months. There you go. And I know you have, and maybe we can cover that a little bit. I'm a huge coffee drinker. I mean, not like huge amounts every day, but I love coffee. And I always struggled, because coffee has mold, has mycotoxins. And I know you also have, and I'm testing it now. I got a new espresso machine. So you make this amazing, super delicious coffee, and that is mold-free, mycotoxin-free. I absolutely love this. And this is a dark roast, and I think you have medium roast, but you have several other products, so we don't want to have time to get into all of those, but you have several other products. You have, which have also pine needle extract, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'll touch on the coffee real quick. So like you said, Claudia, it's organically grown. It's mold and mycotoxin free. It's super, super clean. That's the short of it. It's an amazing tasting, pure, clean coffee. And honestly, like, we have so many people who give us this feedback. And I just actually spoke with a couple friends a couple days ago, where when you start drinking our coffee, and then you go back to, let's say, something that is being sprayed with pesticides and definitely has mold and mycotoxins, you taste the difference right away. Like, ooh, I don't want that anymore. I want to go back to the clean stuff. So it's a distinct experience that people will feel with that coffee. The pine needle extract, that is wild harvested white pine needles that we get up in Canada, and then we hold it in organic vegetable glycerin to give it a nice sweet taste. And it really helps with cardiovascular health and brain health because of something called shikimic acid. Shikimic acid is incredibly important, helps with ensuring the blood flows and oxygen can be carried. So it's helping that normal clotting response. and that process. But we know indigenous humans have used pine needles for hundreds or thousands of years, maybe even longer, for the support of the immune and the respiratory systems, especially during the cold winter months.
Great, thank you so much. Again, I'm looking if you have any more questions here. Other than that, we can come to a close. Everybody loved the presentation, found it helpful, and the slides were helpful. She said, okay, somebody's saying they're looking at the test, the Omega Quantum or Quantum Omega, whatever it was called. I don't remember. There's a lot of different ones. Is it a home test? So maybe, I don't know, we didn't prepare this, but if you have a link to the test, I did one from Genova, I think. It's like the 4 blood spots that you have to do on that kind of paper. I forgot what it's called. But if you have a link, maybe we can put it into the YouTube as well. But yeah, it is a home test. That the one I know you, and I don't think you need a doctor prescription. You can just order it yourself, and then, but you will probably need somebody to interpret it for you. That's what I found. It's not like yes or no. It's not like you have enough or not enough. There's definitely a lot of numbers and values in those test results.
Yes, and in fact, I'm going to put the link in right there into the chat.
Okay, great.
So that one, again, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. That's the one that I've taken before. And it is easy to do. Just like you said, it's just like you just prick your finger, put a few drops of blood on it, you mail it in. With that one in particular, they actually do the interpreting for the person. And what they do is just show the percentage online. Like you log into a portal, and then it just shows what you tested at before, or like what your test was at, and it will upload it in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was very insightful. I definitely learned a whole lot of things that I didn't even know. And so yeah, super important. And I don't know why it's so challenging for us, except, even if we don't eat processed food, I eat organic, I eat pretty much just whole foods. I eat a lot of raw foods. I do eat cooked foods, but I eat, I stay away from any kind of processed food as much as possible. And it's challenging to get these omega-3 fatty acids into our diet, right? And it's, even when I did that test where I really meticulously wrote everything down, and I was trying to get a 2-to-1 ratio from omega-3s to omega-6 and other omega-3 fatty acids. And I had to be like, I didn't eat any walnuts. I was like very specific, and it was challenging. So I think having that option of supplementing, which we always want to highlight, supplementing, right, is super important for our health. And especially as we get older, we want to keep our brain sharp. And, I think dementia, Alzheimer's, a lot of these functions are, diminished when we don't get those healthy fatty acids into our diet. So anything else? Where can people find you? We posted the website into the show notes and everything. And where else can they find you other than your website? Is that pretty much the place to go to?
Yeah. So lanceschuttler.com, that's my personal website. You just said that the Ascent Nutrition links is in the description as well. That's the best way. And, for people listening, please click on those links because Claudia will benefit from that too. We definitely want Claudia getting credit for this. So that will help to track that. And I'm on YouTube as well. I've got some content coming out. I haven't posted in quite a while, but more content is coming for sure. And of course on Instagram too.
Awesome. So Instagram is what is the handle?
Lance Schuttler is my personal one. And then Go Ascent Nutrition is the Instagram for Ascent Nutrition.
Right. I didn't know that one. I would have tagged you. I did a little story earlier today. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. We got great information. We say thank you for the very informative session. Thank you much. Very good information. So yeah, everybody has been loving this. And thank you for putting those slides together. I think it is always helpful to have some visual input. So thank you so much. And we cannot wait to come back next week. Thank you, Lance. And we will now do a little private Q&A in the Clear Vision Club. So goodbye, YouTube. We see you next week.